Can you all see what's on the screen right now? It should be a Word document. It says 2021 award applications, grading instructions. Can any of you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I don't want to keep you longer than you signed up for. Again, this will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back and watch. I'll share it with all the teachers who've signed up to grade. That way, if you need a reference for it, you'll have that. So tomorrow, Miss Eaton, well, first off, today, Miss Eaton and I sorted through all of the applications that came through. We have them put into folders. She's got her list. We cross-checked with each other to make sure we didn't miss anything, and everything was good. This was a really smooth process. So just for your information, we will most likely do this going forward as far as collecting award applications via form site. It was a whole lot easier to make sure that nothing got lost. We can organize it much easier and quicker. I think the process really worked. If there's anything on your end that we could do better as far as collecting it, let me know. I already found one error that I made on the Star Award collection that I need to fix for next year. So if there's anything we can do to make it easier for you to get them submitted, let us know. So tomorrow I will start sending all of this information out. This document is the same one we used last year. I made a couple of updates to it for 2021. It's going to be pretty much your go-to of where you'll find information on how to grade. So the first thing is anytime you have questions, make sure to visit our website, www.laffa.org/awards, and I'll pull this web page up and show you. Can you see the web page on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So if you need a reference to the award handbook, you'll go to our website, click on association. You'll scroll down to awards and degrees, and the award handbook is located right there. This is the final ruling authority on all things awards for Louisiana FFA. So if you're grading a proficiency award and you need further information, this is where you'll go in regards to what's required, what are we looking for, what can result in one getting disqualified. This is what we use as our background. So reference this as much as you need to during the process while you are grading. So I'm going to go back to the Word document. There's a few things I wanted to highlight. This will be across the board for all applications. First off, no signatures are needed. I did notice some of them when they came through this morning, they did have the digital signatures on them. I even noticed some of them have digital signatures going back to last spring. That's okay, because what they did, they took an application from last year that probably was second, third, or fourth place, and they updated it with current information, but they just didn't get anything re-signed on it. So that's okay. You can completely ignore the signature pages on all applications. They're not required, they're not needed. It's not going to penalize a student if they're there or if they're not there. Next, anything that's plagiarized automatically disqualifies an application. Now, in our state, we don't have the ability to run these through a plagiarism checker like what happens at National FFA with state winners, but there are a couple of things you do need to look for. First off, any unauthorized photos. So if there is a picture that a student uploads to any application, or if it's in the National Chapter Award and it's got a watermark on it, that means that that is not authorized for use by that student. It's pretty obvious. We've had some students who have pulled pictures directly off of Google Images. That's considered plagiarism. Any plagiarized picture results in the entire application being disqualified. So especially when you look through photos, make sure that they are legitimate photos of the student or of the chapter engaged in their SAE or in their activity. You can also read through the narrative. If you're reading the narrative and it sounds very much like the student didn't write it, so it's pretty obvious that the student copied it from a journal, from some kind of publication, feel free to copy and paste that entire section into Google and see if it gives you a result. If you get a match to something else, it's disqualified. It means it was plagiarized. Beyond that, there's really no way to know if an application was plagiarized or not. Hopefully teachers did not turn in any that were copied off of a sibling or off of another student at the school, because if multiples of those have gone on to nationals, it will be caught by National FFA and they'll be disqualified. So let's try our best to make sure we catch them here at the state level before we inadvertently send a state winner on that's going to be tossed out in national grading. Something else that can result in disqualification will be non-matching version numbers. So I've got a couple of examples here. I'm going to show you where to find a version number. Let me pull this over on this side. Okay, do you see this example of a star award on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you're looking for version numbers, every application except for like Livestock Exhibition, because it's not a AET-based application, all of these applications are going to have a version number at the bottom of the page. So if you look way down at the bottom, you see this one is version 1160941. You probably should not have an issue of version numbers not matching because they're downloading it as one document. If for some reason, though, someone decided to take a piece of one application and merge it with a piece of another one, this version number is going to be different. So just do a quick check when you get the application, check the version number and make sure it's the same on all pages of the application. If the version numbers are different, it's going to be disqualified. So give a quick check to that as you're going through. Again, since they're all downloaded directly, it shouldn't be an issue, but check. According to our award handbook, any application that's missing 25% or more of the total points based on the scoring rubric is disqualified. What that means is if the information is physically not present. So if you have entire sections of the application that are just left blank, and if that adds up to 25% or more of the total points, we're going to disqualify that one. We're not going to allow an application that's just incomplete to win a category. Even if it's the only application in the category, it has to be done well. We're not going to allow one to go through that is not meeting this minimum standard. So just check again, you'll be able to see if an entire section of it is missing, just start subtracting those points. If it comes out to be 25% or more of the total, we're going to disqualify it. Specifically now to STAR Awards. If you're going to grade STAR Awards, they have to include 3 letters of recommendation, the SAE agreement, and a current 2021 version of the state degree. Even if the student earned the state degree last school year, they still have to include an updated version. That state degree is critical because the information in the state degree pertaining to the student supervised ag experience is what's being referenced in the STAR Award. So make sure that all of those documents and attachments are there, and make sure that the state degree is current. If you look at the top of the state degree application and it says 2020 on the top of it, it's not going to count. It's going to get disqualified. Also, the records must go through December 2020. If the top of the application says 2021, but there's no 2020 records in it, it's also going to be disqualified. They have to have maintained the SAE up through this past calendar year in order to qualify for the application. We get this question every year for those of you grading Star Farmer. If it's a Star Farmer application, it has to be a production agriculture project that's owned by the student. It is an entrepreneurship project. If they're doing a placement project, they belong in Star Placement, not Star Farmer. But specifically, it has to be a production ag project that's owned by the student. If they apply in Star and Ag Business, it also has to be entrepreneurship, but it's a non-production ag project. So any other approved SAE in an entrepreneurship setting would qualify under Ag Business. If it's a placement application, the student doesn't own the project. They're working for someone else. So make sure that distinction is made between Star Farmer and Star and Ag Business. Does anyone have questions so far before I move on? I know I'm going kind of quickly. And if you do have questions throughout, make sure to stop me and I'll be happy to answer for you. So going on now to Proficiency Awards. For those of you who are going to grade Proficiency Awards, a couple of things to keep in mind. You can apply for a Proficiency Award as a 9th grader. It will show errors because there's not going to be the proper membership years for a National FFA Proficiency Award. And I'm going to show you an example of this one also. This is a student who's applied this year. And if you look on the checklist, you see all these not mets. Has less than 12 months of membership, less than 1 year of records. That's because the student is a 9th grader. This doesn't disqualify them. It just means that the student can't win first place because they're not, they don't have 3 years of records yet. So in our state, anything below 3 full years of records is not eligible to win, but we do still allow them to apply. So if you see this situation, don't automatically assume that this is disqualified. You need to go up to the top of the application I don't want to show you all the students' personal info, but go up to the top of the application and find, see the student's not graduating until 2024. So the student is a 9th grader. So again, those will still be scored, but they're just not eligible to win because they don't have the proper number of years. They have to have at least 3 full years of records to win first place. Some teachers have indicated that they want to hold the application back this year and not make it eligible for first place. We'll take care of that in our office after the fact because I want you to score all of them evenly across the board. I don't want to bias any of the applications if the teacher's purposely wanting to hold it back. Here's another big issue that we run into a lot. There are certain areas that are combination areas. So what that means is there's not a separate entrepreneurship and placement category. They're combined into one. Whenever that happens, the grading rubric that you're going to use is dependent on the specific application, not just the category that it's in. So you will only use the combined award rubric when a member indicates that they have percentages of both in the application. I'm going to show you an example of that also. So here's one from this year that's in diversified ag production. It's a combined area. But if you look at the application on the top, you can see that the student has selected partial entrepreneurship and partial placement. When you have this situation, this is when you're going to use the combined scoring rubric. If the student had selected 100% entrepreneurship and 0% placement, you're going to use the entrepreneurship grading rubric. Or vice versa. If it was 100% placement, you'd use that one. The only time you use the combined rubric is in a situation like this where the student has selected percentages of both. If you don't do that, the points are not going to work out and you're going to be very frustrated because you're going to realize that it's not adding up. It's not even across the scoring rubric. So make sure if you're at a combined area that you pay close attention to this percentage to determine which scoring rubric to use. Now for state degrees, I don't think any of you currently on the call are grading state degrees, but for the state degree committee, a couple of things they're going to be looking for specifically is to make sure that the 5 activities are above the chapter level. They also have to be specific. You can't just put a one-word description. You have to describe what that activity was, and it also has to be an approved FFA activity. For community service, that does have to be specified. You can't just put the location that you did the service. You have to describe what the service was and who it was performed for. The committee that grades these, they look at these every year. They know what they're looking for on those state degrees. For Livestock Exhibition, just like last year, we're going to be awarding species-specific top chapter awards in each of the species areas, in addition to gold, silver, bronze in the top 4. We've got the same livestock committee is going to be grading these. We got Mr. Tommy to come out of retirement and help with this again. It hasn't changed since last year. We will get a few teachers from Louisiana to help with National Chapter Award this year. I do have some out-of-state teachers also helping. Specifically, the people who are grading will only be scoring Form 2. Our office will certify Form 1. That's not something that's scored. It's not graded. It's just a check to make sure that you've got activities within those categories. So we'll certify that in the office. So Form 2 will be scored by the judges. For our National Chapter Award judges, make sure that you go to the awards handbook. There's a list of possible point deductions that can apply. You need to visit with your fellow judges within that pillar if you're going to make a point deduction, and then conference with me about it so that we can verify if that deduction does need to be applied or not. The judges are only going to be grading one pillar, so we're going to have 3 judges assigned to growing leaders, 3 to strengthening agriculture, and 3 to building communities. So because of that, our office will check across the pillars if there's any point deductions, since those judges are not necessarily going to see the others whenever they're grading. So when you're grading these applications, if you feel that something has to be disqualified, you need to visit with your judging committee first. There's going to be 3 teachers on each grading committee. Make sure if you flag something for disqualification that you talk with the other 2 people on your grading committee first and arrive at a consensus. If you all agree that the application should be disqualified, then you're going to submit it to me along with the reason for that disqualification. Once that's done, I'm going to have a second committee of teachers whose sole job, it's going to be 1 teacher from each area. Their job is going to be to verify whether or not those applications should be disqualified. If they verify it, then we'll disqualify. So again, make sure you talk with the other teachers on your committee first, come to that consensus, and then forward it on to me for that final approval. If you discover that someone has applied in the wrong category, it's disqualified. We don't try to move it to the proper category for them. Once that application is submitted, the assumption is that it's in the proper category. You have to verify that ahead of time before you turn it in. Once it's at this stage, it's going to be graded as it is. So according to our handbook, if it's in the wrong category, it gets disqualified. Once you get this form, once you get this Word document, the links are going to be here for you to go to your grading rubrics. Now, again, if you did this for us last year, you should be familiar. It's going to be the same rubric. If I have time tomorrow, I may actually go through and create drop-down lists for you so that you can pick specific names of students so you're not having to hand type all that in. I'll see how efficient that would be before I do that. But regardless, these will be the links. So if you click on the link, for example, this one, this is the Ag Research scoring rubric. It'll pull this up. You're going to enter your name, your proficiency area. Now, your name, I'm not sharing this with students or teachers after the fact. This is to make sure that I get a score from each of you, is the reason why you put your name. I don't share your information out. I will probably do a drop down for the proficiency area to make sure that you're in the right category. You'll put the student's name and their chapter. This scoring rubric has been pulled directly from the National FFA rubric. So these are the descriptions that you get when you look at the full rubric. I'll give you the full PDF file of the rubric also if you want more information, more detail, because there are some like mid-level explanations, but this is what it says on the bottom. This is what it says on the top. So it's on a scale. So you're going to read through the application and it's going to correspond to the application you're reading. So for example, let me pull another one up and show you. Let me close this one. I'm going to go back to that combined rubric so you can see what I'm referring to. So here's the combined rubric. This is what you're going to use on that application that had 15% entrepreneurship, 85% placement. So when we scroll down, it says SAE explanation in relation to award area performance review A question 1. If you look at the application and you scroll down to where the application starts, here's performance review A. So it's going to follow along with the application. The rubric goes along with the application as you go. Performance review A 1, 2, and 3. If you go back to the scoring rubric, there's question A, or review A question 1, review A question 2, review A question 3. So the whole time you're going through the scoring rubric, you're just going to follow right along with the application and just select them as you go. They do look long, but again, it's because it's stretched out one question at a time. It's no longer than what the normal application is. Now, for a few of the questions, you are going to have to hand enter the number because on these Google Forms, it only goes up to 10, and some of them have scores higher than 10. So like for this one on size, scope, responsibilities, you'll have to hand enter. It's not going to let you put higher than 17. It's got a limit on it, but you would have to hand enter that score whenever you're placing your scores onto the rubric. So again, you follow along, it will follow along with the application. There's another big one that's over 10. And then when you get down to the bottom, this is optional, but I would highly recommend you do it. This is going to give feedback to our students. We do this for our LDEs. It's important that we do it for these applications also. You can put any comments or recommendations you have for the student to improve the application. This will be very important for those that win state and go into nationals to help them get better. And if they don't win, what can they do next year to get better? Once you're finished, check it, hit submit. If you're missing anything required, it's going to stop you and make you go back. But you have to do one rubric or one score sheet for each application. So you're going to do one, submit it. And then once you do that, you're going to close it and you're going to go back to your document and you're going to find the next application and you're going to open another one. So every time you grade an application, you're going to open up the scorecard over and over. You can submit these multiple times, but you have to do one per application. Exact same process for Star Farmer. For those of you who will be assigned to Grade Star Farmer, the rubric looks the same. It's still using a Google document or a Google form. Same thing, you'll put your name, your information, and then you'll follow along with the application as it goes down, and then enter any comments you may have for them. So again, do one score sheet for each application. When you're done, submit it. The scores are automatically going to collect into a Google Sheet, and then we'll be able to pull them from there. This is very critical. I know that this was a bit of a change the past 2 years. I think most of us are now in the same mindset of how this works. You're not providing rankings anymore. If you have 7 applications in your particular category, you're not going to rank them 1 through 4, your top 4. You're just going to score it. We're going to take the sum of the judges' rankings and use that to determine the top 4 who are going to move on to an interview. It's a lot more fair this way. You get a whole week to sit down and really dig into these applications and give them a good solid look through and score them fairly. And then we're just going to use the numerical totals. If there's ties, we have tiebreakers that are built into the award handbook to determine which 4 move on. Once you do your rankings, again, if you have some that don't qualify, well, that doesn't apply to you. We would take care of that at the interview level if some don't qualify to win. But regardless, all I need is your scores, and that'll be it. You'll be done. So does anyone have questions? That takes us through the document that you'll be getting. Hopefully I'm going to try to be able to send this out to you tomorrow. Let me verify and make sure. I believe I covered everything with you that I wanted to bring up. I will show you this. One of our student workers put together a grading rubric for us to use, an electronic grading rubric for us to use this year for National Chapter Award. This is what the National Chapter Award judges will get. So it looks identical to the paper version, except now we'll just be able to come through and copy scores out when we need to move them over instead of having to hand enter everything. It's also set up to where if this one is worth 5 points, the judge cannot enter anything higher than 5. It's going to reject it. So they can't put a bigger number than what's allowed. It'll total everything down at the bottom. If there are deductions, they'll put their deductions in, and you can see it just totals the whole way through. So this should make it a lot easier for people scoring National Chapter Award to get that one done. It's going to make it a whole lot easier for me when I have to come pull these scores and get things compiled. All right, so does anyone have questions before we wrap up? Again, this video, I'll share it out with everyone. I'm sorry, did you have a question, Ms. Krista?
Yeah, hi. When are we getting copies of the applications, and when are they due?
They're going to be sent out to you on March 25th, and you'll have until the end of the day on April 1st to get them back to me. On April 2nd, I'll start tallying results, so you'll have a week.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
That's a good question. I should have mentioned. Any other questions? All right, if there's no other questions, feel free to email, call, text between now and Thursday. Again, tomorrow I will put together the judging committees based on who turned applications in. You won't be grading your own. I'll get that shared with you, and we'll get started with it on Thursday. Thank you all so much for agreeing to do this. We've got like 90-something teachers who volunteered, so your burden of application shouldn't be too big this year. We'll get that sent out to you, and we'll get started. So thank you all again. Have a good day. Stay dry, and we'll talk to you again soon.